Well, I'm happy because I'm launching a book that I edited, which is a history of journalism from developing countries over the last 150 years, with an emphasis on campaigning and investigative journalism. And the point of the book, it's a collection of reporting that's already appeared. There are 47 pieces of journalism introduced by 40 different people, and it's a compendium of different campaigning journalism from all over the world. We have different themes. We have labor stories, stories about police brutality, stories about corruption and women and rural affairs. And the idea of the book was to show how journalists have grappled with the same subjects across countries and across time. So we have, for example, stories about the 1906 boycott of Cadbury's chocolate because of labor conditions in Sao Tome and Principe, next to a story written in 2008 about labor conditions on the cocoa plantations in West Africa. We have a story about the terrible conditions in the Congo under King Leopold, and a story that appeared a few years later about the conditions of the indigenous people gathering rubber in the Amazon. So the idea is to show that many of the themes have reoccurred over and over again, and to showcase some of the brave journalists around the world who've tried to expose wrongdoing, many of them who've been killed in the process. So I think that because of the awful things that have been happening to journalists lately, people are really, I think, more worried about the future of journalism and certainly more interested in the long and rich tradition of investigative journalism. I think right now there's a lot of good investigative reporting that's happening around the world, partly because of technology, partly because of philanthropy, but I'm certainly worried for the future. I think one of the lessons of the book is that investigative reporting doesn't make money. The newspapers and magazines that we showcased in the book didn't last, and I don't see any reason to think that these problems are going to be solved in the future. Well, I think one of the surprises of my book was I learned that the relationship between NGOs and journalists is a longer relationship than I had understood. Even in the 19th century, the abolitionists were underwriting newspapers, for example, and labor stories are very often a product of efforts of advocates and journalists together. So I think this has been happening for a long time. I certainly think it will continue to happen. I'm looking for my next research project at actually talking to donors and journalists about what are the implications for this relationship, because clearly it's not going to go away. And I think we need to think a lot about the implications for newsroom independence and how the two groups can help each other but still respect the values of journalism too. A lot of people are always terminal. So I think most of the startups that I see, a lot of people that I talk to who start new online sites and new apps, those don't last either. Again, going back to the book, pretty much every newspaper and magazine that was showcased in the book, they don't exist anymore either. So I'm coming to the view that even we've spent a lot of time thinking about institution building in journalism, and I'm not sure how realistic that is. I think the nature of the beast may be more kind of short-term than we think, but the journalism often lasts, and it often has an impact, and it often outlasts the institution. So I'm less worried about it than I used to be.